Today we're going to talk about my favorite punctuation mark in the entire world, which is the semicolon, a highly underrated gem in the punctuation world. So today, by the end of the video, you should be able to describe what semicolons can do and identify when they have been used correctly or incorrectly. Semicolons can pretty much just do two things. The first and most important one is that they can join two independent clauses. This rule most impacts compound sentences and compound complex sentences. Those are the two sentence types where semicolons can appear. For example, she drank Diet Pepsi is a complete sentence. It's an independent clause. Therefore, I'm allowed to put a semicolon here and put a second independent clause, like it was delicious. I know this is correct as a semicolon because, again, it's sandwiched in between two independent clauses, and these two halves are related to each other. They're not super random, because if they were super random, I'd have no reason to join them with a semicolon or anything else. The sentence right here is the same. My homework was easy, semicolon. The worksheet only took 5 minutes. These are two independent clauses, therefore I'm allowed to connect these two halves with a semicolon. Compound complex sentences can use semicolons as well, but don't have to. For example, although all soda is bad for you, Diet Pepsi has one slight advantage. It no longer contains aspartame. So first I have the word although, which is a subordinate conjunction or an amubis word, kicking off a dependent clause. Then an independent one, semicolon, and then a second independent one. So, as trivia, semicolons are one of the many ways to fix or prevent a run-on. For example, if you remember from past videos, I can't just put a comma alone between two independent clauses, but I can just put a semicolon there, and that's legal. But semicolons can do something else entirely, which is prevent comma confusion during lists. For example, if I wanted to list a whole bunch of cities that I've been to, or that someone else has been to, I could create problems very quickly, because if I put in commas between the city and state or the city and country, and I put commas between all the different locations, I'm going to have a hot mess of commas and not really know what's going on with this list. If I write it in this case, as in number 1, where there's only commas, it kind of makes it look like London, England, Columbus, Ohio, and Orlando, Florida are all like 6 different places. When in fact, London is in England, Columbus is in Ohio, and Orlando is in Florida. So I'm allowed to put semicolons to prevent comma insanity in a list of cities. I'm also allowed to put semicolons in lists that are super long or that have lots of phrases where, again, commas could make a hot mess. For example, look at this sentence. All I wanted to do was. After this moment, I've got a list of 3 items. Sleep in until noon, eat cereal for lunch, and wear my pajamas. However, I've also put in other descriptive information. I've put in phrases like with no alarm clock and preferably Lucky Charms. And if I only put in commas throughout, it'd be a hot comma mess. But I am allowed to put in semicolons between the 3 list items to clarify where these list items start and stop. So in other words, semicolons can prevent lists from becoming really messy. One cool trick that semicolons can do is not only join 2 independent clauses, but they can go with certain types of transition words. We can put certain transition words next to semicolons in the middle of compound or compound complex sentences. For example, we are allowed to put the formula semicolon, conjunctive adverb, and comma. We do need to have all 3 of these together, though, if we're going to try the cool trick. I hate winter. However, Snow makes me happy. So again, here's my formula in action. Semicolon, conjunctive adverb, comma. We should have done our chores. Instead, we played video games. Mom fixed my broken shoe. Therefore, I could still go to practice on time. The prince went on a quest. Meanwhile, the princess saved herself from a dragon. These highlighted words in black are all conjunctive adverbs, adverbs that are allowed to be transitions. The only exception here is that, oh, maybe not an exception, but the only caution that I have for you is to make sure you don't put conjunctions in here. Conjunctive adverbs are okay, but conjunctions like Awubis words and fanboys words should not go with a semicolon pretty much ever. At least not in this manner with a comma as a transition word by itself. For example, I could not say, I went to the store, semicolon, and Jonas went to the mall. That's supposed to be a comma with a fanboys word. I also should not say, the concert was canceled because the singer was sick, with a semicolon right here. The word because is an Awubis word or a subordinate conjunction, and it creates a dependent clause. And we can't use a semicolon to join a dependent clause to an independent one. That's not a thing. I'd have to add a whole nother independent clause here to make it compound complex, and this example is just wrong. One of the frequent problems that come up with colons and semicolons is when to use each one since they look so similar. They not only literally look similar, but there are some cases in which they are used similarly as well. For example, colons are just supposed to create dramatic pauses. Colons are mostly used to add on short bonus information to the end of an already complete sentence. They can maybe add a single word or a short list or a short phrase to the end of a sentence as an add-on or bonus information. For example, I can say, I went to the store and bought 3 things: eggs, ham, and cheese. This is just fine. I already have a complete sentence, and I've used a colon to just add on 3 bonus listed items to clarify what those 3 things are. I'm not allowed to interrupt a sentence with a colon. That's not cool. So I can't say I went to the store and bought eggs, ham, and cheese, because that's grammatically incorrect. Here's the tricky part. Colons can join 2 independent clauses together, kind of like a semicolon, but only if the clauses go together and if we want to put emphasis on that second clause. So I can't say, I went to the store, colon, he went to the mall, because those are 2 clauses of equal emphasis and there's nothing special about the second one, really. But I can use a colon here. I went to the store. The new store redesign made the trip worth it. This is considered acceptable because this second clause is not only related, but it puts emphasis on why I went to the store or why the trip to the store was worth it. Semicolons have more freedom. The 2 clauses don't have to be as closely related and don't have to include that emphasis on the second clause. So semicolons have more freedom and are more widely used. I should not say I went to the store, semicolon, cheese is gross, because what does cheese have to do with the store necessarily? But I can say I went to the store, cheese was on sale there. Again, they're at least a little bit related. There's one other problem with semicolons that often comes up, which is mixing up when to put a semicolon and when to put a comma. For example, we can't put a semicolon between a dependent and an independent clause in a complex sentence. So here's a complex sentence, and the first one's been punctuated improperly. Although, Awubis word, It's cold out, independent clause, now dependent. We managed to stay warm. This should just be a comma, friends. Don't put semicolons anywhere the commas can go because they are rarely interchangeable. And this is not a list. I also can't put an awubis or a fanboys word with a semicolon. We talked about this already, but just as one more example, we lost the football game, but we still had a great season. But is a fanboys coordinating conjunction. It needs a comma, not a semicolon. So let's review. Pause the video if you need to and check out these 7 examples. Please tell me in a yes-no fashion whether or not all these semicolons in these sentences or colons have been used correctly. If you're ready, let's look at the answers. We ate all the cookies. That's why we got so sick. This semicolon is just fine. It's joining 2 independent clauses. Because you studied is a dependent clause, thanks to the awubis word because. Therefore, I can't put a semicolon here. This should be a comma. Here is a compound complex sentence with a correct semicolon joining the 2 independent clauses. This one is incorrect, number 4, because the word and is again a fanboys coordinating conjunction and should get a comma with it. Number 5 is just fine, and it uses that formula, semicolon, conjunctive adverb, comma, to join 2 independent clauses. Number 6 is also okay, because this is one of those rare times when a colon can replace a semicolon to join 2 independent clauses. These 2 clauses are not only related, but the second one helps to emphasize the first one. And finally, number 7 is just fine because I'm using semicolons to separate 3 items in a list and prevent comma chaos. I know we went over a lot of rules in a short time, but thank you for listening and feel free to rewatch the video if you need it.